I used to think that as long as I ate my greens, drank a lot of water, and hit my daily steps, I was ahead in the longevity game. I was wrong. At 62, I realized that I was forgetting one of the most important levers that science says is as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I'm talking about social isolation. Not just being alone, but when you have a social circle that actually drains your energy. Hi, I'm Chantal and welcome to AI for 50 Plus, born before Wi-Fi, owning AI. Today in video 4 of the Smart Longevity series, we're using NotebookLM and Gemini to a certain extent to audit our social connections and to create a plan to protect our energy as much as we protect our diet. In our last video, video 3, we tackled movement, a heavy hitter in the Tier 1 category for longevity. Today, we're staying in Tier 1. Social isolation is a very important factor, but we're moving from the physical to the relational. And because while it's easy to see the impact of a workout, it's harder to see the biological toll of our social environment. If you want to check out the ranked factors for longevity versus day-to-day well-being, because they're not exactly the same, I explained that in video 1 of the series, where I also show you how to set up those very important notebooks. I've put a link for that video in the description below. Now, let's look at why your social circle is probably the most important factor you might be neglecting. Here we are in NotebookLM at notebooklm.google.com, and we're in my longevity notebook. And on the left here are the sources that are comprised of certain documents and research. And what the research says about social isolation is that it's a physiological trigger of cortisol and systemic inflammation. And those two are the root of so many illnesses and issues. It's mind-blowing. So we have to think of our social health as being as important as our computer. We install software in the computer to protect against viruses and scams. Well, we have to act a bit as a human firewall to protect our biology, not even just mental health, but our biology from people who drain us. So the workflow is fairly simple. Gemini writes the prompt so that NotebookLM can actually produce the outputs that I will show you. But before, I want to share what is important in terms of the sources themselves. And there's 3 important categories there. There's, of course, the whole research on social isolation. So NotebookLM knows what affects it positively, negatively, whatever. It also has my diary. Here, it's called Fast Track Max because I use it for so many GEMs and GPTs. But in there, it's my journal, and I talk about how I feel and who I'm meeting and what are the events that I'm doing and what stresses me out. So what is important here is that once I've used my diary, I come here, I click on the document itself, and then it should appear, maybe because I synced it recently. So under here, usually you would have a sync, and then it syncs it to make sure that NotebookLM has the latest version of what you wrote in there. So that's the second document. The third category are psychological profile, really. And there are 3 tests that I took, and I've put the results in here. I'll show you one of them. Here, my results from the Big 5. So I have 3 tests because it's really important that NotebookLM not only has a research and also what I'm doing and how I feel, but has an idea of my personality, what stresses me out, what actually empowers me or makes me feel better, because we're all different. So I wanted it to be much more, custom, to make sure that it knows who I am. Gemini writes the prompts, and then I come here on the right in the studio, and I ask NotebookLM to create the 2 outputs in the infographic. So I'll show you where you go. I didn't change anything here. I just went in this area, I pasted the prompt, and I clicked on generate. So that's what you would do as well. But before I show you the two outputs, if you want practical one-to-one help in AI, I'm offering clarity sessions for people over 50 or younger. So if you want more details, look in the pinned comment or in the description of this video. So I'll show you the first input, which is the infographic. What it did actually, and you see it all in here, the whole middle section is what comes from my diary. I have here a biological tax because you might have seen in the previous video that I had an issue with Gemini with this whole series, and it really stressed me out. So it's here. YouTube time crunch, that I had to do a lot of things because I was going away and I wanted to prepare a number of videos. But also you see the video calls that I have, walking with friends, my daily connections with my husband. So this is the diary or the journal area. Here you have my personality profile, really, what stresses me out, what is important to me. So so I know that it read it because it's true. And then here at the bottom, what I really like is that it gives me how to mitigate the biological taxes here. So taking into account my personality, what could I do to make that a bit less impactful negatively on my emotions, really. And then what I found funny is that there's a rating here, and apparently there's a diversity gap. So I have too many interactions with my family. And maybe because I didn't put a lot of friends interactions, because I do have friends and we do go out like a couple of times a week. So anyways, but that was funny. But it's true that I do have a lot of interactions with my immediate family and my parents and all of that. So yeah, that's what it gave me. So that was quite funny. The second one that I want to show you is, let me go here in Canva because I wanted to personalize it a bit. What you have here is a dashboard that shows visually, again, a different way of how the different people in my life, where they are, if they drain me, or events, because nobody is draining me actually, it's more events that are draining me. The middle part here is my inner core, or what gives me energy. So you see my children, my grandchildren, my husband is there. Thank God they're all in the right place, so that's great. Then the middle ring is what nourishes me as well. Because of my personality, I like to master things and learn things. So my AI project development that I have, my video content prep is there. So that's very positive. But then that last ring here is really the biological tax. And you have quite a few things here. Large crowds, yeah, I don't like that. Long car rides, technical friction with AI, God. And excessive portions, because I realize that my body is more stressed when I eat than when I don't eat. And sometimes it's because not, Thanksgiving level, but sometimes it's a bit more than I should. So it tells me here. These tools actually helps me visualize and maybe see things that I would not see normally. It might feel cold to audit friends and family with AI, but it's the highest form of self-care. If you do everything right with your diet, exercise, hydration, but you still feel tired, you might want to check your social connections. Your longevity might be leaking out through wrong connections. I placed a link in the description below for the prompts that I used. And don't hesitate, use them and let AI maybe show you some patterns that you might have missed. In the next video, we're going deep into the body. We're looking at metabolic health and how to use AI to decode blood test results. Thanks for watching and see you next week in video 5.